Velma is drawing to a close. It's the penultimate week for the Velma series, and after these two episodes that I'm about to discuss, it will be the season finale. We've had 5 weeks of a show that's been subpar and had a lot of talkability about it. This week, these 2 episodes continued the trend that the show seems to have adopted in providing a thin plot where no real developments were made until the end of the episode. However, one thing episodes 7 and 8 did was reference the original series in the dialogue. They introduced the Mystery Machine, and they also included an alteration in the design of Fred, which was a reference to the original show, showing that they are relying heavily on references. So let's recap, review, and break down episodes 7 and 8 and discuss how this show hasn't improved. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The first thing I'll touch on is the title of the video and the incorporation of the Mystery Machine. In episode 8 of the show, we saw that Velma's mother was found within the crystal caves, and as she saved Velma from falling to her death even deeper within the cave, we saw that she reached out her arm and grabbed her. Shortly after this, Velma's mother revealed a van that was underneath a large cover within the cave, and it was here where we saw a completely painted white Mystery Machine. Velma's mother even played on the fact that she couldn't call it a mystery machine and called it a mystery jalopy. To me, it feels like the show is trying to lean in on the fact that they haven't got the rights to the IP for most of the things that make the Scooby-Doo universe so iconic. They don't have Scooby-Doo, so they incorporated it in a way that was used at the center of the show, but altered the spelling and made it a poorly created acronym. And they've now got the Mystery Machine but painted it white to show that they can't use any of the recognizable designs and can't call it by its own name. They even basically called out in this week's episode that they were a spin-off that wasn't really a touch on the original. So whilst they try and own it, I just feel it exposes the show more for what it actually is. But now for the rest of the episodes and the story. Let's start with episode 7. Following on from episode 5 and 6, we saw that the main thing was that Velma found a clue that showed us that Velma's mother was recently in the basement that was below Fred's mansion, and that she was going to continue searching for what the Jinkies clue could mean. Within these episodes, with the discovery of the Scooby Project, which was focused on the removal of human brains and keeping them alive outside of the body, the town believed that it was the ghost of Norville's grandmother, the original person who worked on the project which was doing the killings, and not an actual serial killer, which meant that the curfew that was on the town was able to be lifted and the Fogfest could go ahead. I found this to be a little confusing. I don't understand why the threat level would be any different if it was a ghost going around and killing people, or if it was an actual human being that was a serial killer. Surely the threat level would still be just as high, so the drop in attitude was something that I found a bit strange. We saw that the main gag of the episode was Velma being dressed up as a man and being called Manny, but we saw that when she was dressed up as a man, everybody in the town respected her and listened to the opinions that nobody would give a second to when she was herself. I totally understand what they were trying to do with the point that they were trying to make, however, I don't think it landed. And I think that's because the core of the joke and the point wasn't there due to the way that Velma's been created. Velma's opinions aren't being ignored because she's a woman, but they're ignored because of the type of person that she is. If Daphne's mothers were standing on the stage and speaking what Velma was saying, I imagine the public would listen to them, and they're both women. The people of the town don't really like Velma. She's selfish, comes across as crazy at times, and disregards everybody but herself. We've even seen her do it to the people that she's closest to, Norville and Daphne. If she was a likable person who was speaking facts and didn't have a track record of frustrating people due to her extreme opinions, then I imagine people would listen to her more. So I just don't think the substance of the point that they were trying to make was there. It could have been done right, but I don't think it was. We didn't see much development of the story in this episode until right at the end of it, where we saw that the actual killer was at the festival and had taken Fred hostage, and that was in the mid-credit scene. So we then had the next episode where we had to wait and see what was going to happen. Episode 8. This was an episode where they tried to be stylistically intelligent and incorporate flashbacks, but I don't think it worked that well, even if they were leaning in on it as a gag. We saw the day from several different perspectives, but it didn't really matter because the time differences weren't that large and the different perspectives didn't change the consequences or outcome of them all being stuck in the cave. We saw Norville still wanting to be with Velma despite being with Gigi, and I think that's a bad thing for the character to have. I previously liked Norville, but in these past 2 episodes he's not been able to shake Velma when she clearly doesn't like him. She uses him and then she disregards him, so I feel a Gigi and Norville breakup is going to happen soon. Something that was utilized in this episode was the character Fred. We saw him in the cave with the murdered girl's brains in the jar, so we know that the killer is likely related to the Scooby Project. I previously thought it was Velma's mother, and I still feel like it could be. Or she could have put somebody's brain inside of another person's in order to carry out the killings, but we'll just have to wait and see. She probably knows more about the Scooby Project than anybody else out there, so I think the fingers are pointing to her. The way Velma's mother just appeared was something that I thought was a bit underwhelming. She's been missing for all of this time, several years, and she was just in the cave. We didn't get any explanation, it didn't seem like she was a hostage or anything like that, so it's a bit baffling. I imagine we'll see next week in the season finale. It felt like these 2 episodes really tried to lean into the IP of the original show, but in a way that they could get away with. Whether it was the mystery machine, Fred's design, the running in different doors, and being aware of the fact that they're a spin-off show, it's not something I'm a huge fan of personally. I think they should just own what they are. The humor in this week's episode didn't land, which is something that we've come to expect. However, there was the odd moment that did make me laugh a tad. Most of this came from Fred in the cave with the jars, but that was about it. I feel the hallucinations were something that added to the show rather than made it worse, and I do actually miss them a bit. They gave Velma a weakness, where now she doesn't have one, and she feels like she can just keep on going. The weakness brought her down to earth slightly and made her a little bit more human. I also appreciated the art style and animation of those scenes as they were extremely unique. So now it's just the webtoon type animation that isn't that nice on the eye. But hey, we have 2 more episodes to go, and it's safe to say that it feels like most of this story could have been condensed, as by the end it would have been nearly 5 hours of viewing, and I don't feel I've had 5 hours of a worthwhile story that's had different layers, depth, development, and characters that have been able to contribute something memorable. It's a shame, but with the show getting such a poor rating, you'd ordinarily say that it would be cancelled. However, the talkability is something that means it could come back, which I'd be fine with if they drastically improve the writing and give the show a sense of identity, but we'll have to wait and see. Season finale? Here we come. So, there you have it, how Velma episode 7 and 8 introduced the mystery machine and made it worse. If you want to see more videos such as endings explained, theories and predictions, and character breakdowns, then click on the I button, or alternatively you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @brainpilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of episode 7 and 8? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.